Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Z, and I am a digital marketing specialist here at EnableMart. I want to start off by thanking you for joining us and learning more about Read&Write Gold software and how it can benefit your students. Our presenter today is Jason Carroll, Product Marketing Manager for North America at TextHelp. He has trained thousands on the effective use of assistive and instructional technology throughout the U.S. and beyond since his start with educational cooperatives over a decade ago. His focus is on bridging the gap between operation of technology and actual implementation, and he is a popular speaker on these topics each year. Jason is a graduate of the Assistive Technology Application Certificate Program from California State University at Northridge. He holds an MBA, is a Google educator, and authorized Google education trainer. He is a published author, has taught at the university level, and served as an independent consultant prior to his position at TextHelp. We are so excited to have Jason here today to talk to us about Read&Write Gold. Just a couple things about today's webinar before I hand it off to Jason. We will not be taking audio questions, but would like to submit your questions via the questions interface and go to webinar. You can submit your questions at any time during the presentation. Jason will take about 40 to 45 minutes for his presentation, and we will leave about 10 minutes at the end to address questions. We'll get through as many as we can. This webinar will be recorded, and a link to it will be posted on the enablemart.com website after the webinar, as well as emailed to you for future playback. Everyone who attends today's webinar will also be receiving a certificate of attendance for joining us today. You can expect to receive your follow-up email with the link to the recording and your certificate of attendance in about 3 to 5 business days. And at that time, you'll also get a link to download a free trial version of Read&Write Gold. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Jason.
Excellent. Thanks, Sarah. And I'm going to go forward here on a slide. Right, so I'm going to assume that everyone can hear me unless Sarah pops in here in a few minutes and says, hey, Jason, we can't hear you. So, moving into kind of the webinar here, Sarah said I'm Jason, and I work for TextHelp, product manager there, but I was an AT, assistive technology consultant for years prior to joining on with TextHelp. So I'm excited today to go through a few things related to Read&Write Gold and hopefully provide everyone with some beneficial information. So here's the agenda. It's pretty easy. There's only 3 parts to it. We've already got half of the first part done, which is intro and facts. I'd like to start out with sharing a few facts related to why Read&Write Gold is such an important support. And then the majority of the time, I'll just be doing a demo. I'll be showing you how the software actually works. And then, of course, Q&A. So we'll have time at the end, as Sarah mentioned, for questions and answers. But I'll also stop a time or two, in the middle of the webinar there, just to see if there are any questions on specific features. So moving on, just a heads up, I'm going to show you guys some kind of data slides and things like that. So I wanted you to be aware of what's coming. I wanted to start with kind of the K through 12 arena and then move into higher ed and then post higher education. And the first thing to look at is kind of where we are in the U.S. with achievement in reading, and then that's of course going to carry on to all content areas and grade levels. If you look at the first graph here, this is from the nation's report card. Basically, the government has been measuring every 2 years for the last 20 years how students are achieving at 4th, 8th, and in the past they used to do 12th grade as well to see how students are performing. And if you look at this graph, it started in 92, the most recent was in 2013, you'll see that out of a 500-point scale, so basically if you give someone a test and they don't do anything and they hand it back to you, well, that would be a 0. And if they just knocked it out of the park and did a great job, that would be 500. So you can see at 92, the average score in the U.S. For reading for 4th grade students was 217 out of 500. So that's not exactly what we're looking for there. But if you fast forward over 20 years and the billions of dollars that's been put into reading initiatives in the United States, you'll see that they've managed to make it now an average score of 222. So not a very large, a 5-point gain over 20 plus years, which still leaves all these students scoring below proficient. The 8th grade is very similar. This is the 8th grade graph. You'll see in 92, students scored an average of 260 out of that 500-point scale. Fast forward 20 plus years, and they're 268. So again, not really making the progress that one would hope in that amount of time. What's also interesting is in the K through 12 arena is the number of English language learners that are here in the United States. And this graph that I have up, it basically shows at the top the OECD average. The OECD is an organization that tracks economic development in I guess what I would call first world countries. And the average of all the first world countries, the average percent of students in schools that learn English or that are learning in their second language is around 10%. In the UK, for example, it's a little over that. It's 10.6%. But if you look in the U.S., almost 20% of students in the U.S. today are learning in what would be at best their second language, maybe even third or fourth. And if you look at the same thing with the percent of schools that have more than a quarter of their enrollment that learn English, that's learning in their second language, again, the United States blows everyone else away by over 30%. So that's good because everyone's wanting to come to the U.S., but it also makes things very difficult for educators and the students who are learning in a language that is not their own. So you fast forward and you get to higher education, and the picture isn't really that much better because when you look at the higher education stats, as many as is important because we're looking at 2-year kind of community college programs and also 4-year universities and those sort of things. But as many as 60% of students in some higher education settings are requiring remedial classes. So they'll have to take those before they even begin getting credit for school. And because of that, the extra time and the struggles that they have not being prepared, up to 3/4, gotta get my fractions right here, up to 3/4 of those students, may not graduate. So the retention costs and things for higher education are huge. In addition, about 15% of students that enter higher education report having a learning disability, and on average only 41% of those students graduate. So we've learned a bit about the problems in K through 12 and problems in higher education. And then if you look at just in general the population today, about 1 in 5, estimates range between 15 and 20% depending on where you're looking. But approximately 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. today have dyslexia, which of course can cause problems in many settings as well. So I go over those things just to say that we do have a problem. And I like to start out webinars by really depressing everyone because now it will only go up from here. It will only get better. Because the good news is that technology can actually help with this problem. Being an assistive technology consultant in the past and now working in the instructional and assistive technology industry, I've seen that. I'm a testament to what can be done with that. So I thought it'd be good to look at one kind of quick example of a student that we're familiar with before I get into actually showing what the software could do. This particular student was a middle-aged student, and this shows kind of I guess what this would be the before. So what was going on here is the student was really struggling with the reading, struggling with writing, struggling in all content areas. And in the evening there would be homework, and there was battles back and forth between the student and his mom because they'd be working for 3 hours or more to try to get this stuff down, and it was really a frustrating experience. And this is the type of thing that you would see come back. And what's interesting, if you look at the first question, is that it wasn't that the student didn't know the answer to some of the questions. It was just there was a lot that went into formulating a response and getting it on paper and spelling words correctly and all those sorts of things. So what occurred was, he'd give it a try on 1 or 2, and then after that he would go to IDK. And, any guesses on what IDK means? And you're probably aware that would be shorthand for I don't know. Again, a lot of problems going on there, and this particular student was introduced to Read and Write Gold, shown how to work it, show the particular features that could help him the most, and this is 3 months later. And so you'd see it's not necessarily perfect. I apologize because I kind of did a screenshot job here. It's a little crooked. But you'll see a couple are still marked wrong, but night and day difference. There's an answer to each question, using complete sentences and all those sort of things. And again, this was just over a 3-month period. At home, that 3 hours was reduced to 45 minutes. So big changes all around. So when I say technology can help, what do I mean? What technology? Well, there are several common assistive or just general technologies that individuals can use that can really help with reading and writing and research and studying and all those sorts of things. And those supports I've listed here, you have things like text-to-speech, to where this technology can read the text out loud for you. Obviously, that's great if you're a struggling reader or a non-reader, but there are some important things to consider when using text-to-speech, which we will take a look at. Word prediction when writing. Word prediction, when I started in the assistive technology industry, was only used for, again, I came from the K through 12 background there, so it was only used mostly with students who had a physical disability that prevented them from really being able to access the keyboard and things like that. And now if you have an iPhone, word prediction's built in, whenever you're typing, or at least word completion. And anymore, you don't even need that because you can just speak into it and it will type for you. So definitely have come a long way there. The same way with dictionaries and images, such as the visual dictionaries now that can really be of benefit. Editing tools, speech to text, which would be dictating into a microphone and your text appearing on screen. And then of course organizational and brainstorming tools and all that. So when I say technology can help and supports can help, these are the types of supports that I'm referring to. So today we're talking about Read and Write Gold, and what's great about Read and Write Gold is that all those things that I just mentioned on the previous slide are actually included in Read and Write Gold. Read and Write Gold. The goal of Read and Write Gold is to take all the common assistive technologies that students would need, or that individuals would need, put them all on one toolbar, and then allow that toolbar to work with any other program or platform you may be working with. And that's really important from you may have heard the term universal design for learning, which means making environments accessible for the most users possible. So if you're in a workplace or a higher ed setting and you're using Microsoft Word, but you have dyslexia and need an additional support, you don't want to have to not use Microsoft Word if that's the format that's being used in the workplace. You just need an extra layer of support there, and that's what Read and Write Gold does. It's a toolbar that you can take and dock to the top of your screen. Actually, if you see at the top of my screen, I have Read and Write Gold docked there right now. So then you can take it and use those supports with Microsoft Word or the internet or whatever it may be that you need. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at today, or some of these features. Now I can't hit all of them because there are over 30 features on the toolbar, and each feature has various options and things like that. I don't think that you all want to be spending 6 hours with me today, so I will spare you all the details of all the features, but I do want to highlight some of the main ones and then take some questions as well. One nice thing about Read and Write Gold that you will find the more you use it, is that it is customizable. In addition to having preset toolbars for reading and writing and research and those sort of things, you can also customize it any way you'd like. The toolbar you see at the top of my screen, I've got it set to my features, which means I just choose the features that I want, and then those show up every time that I open the program. And install this is the PC version 11. You can install that on your PC computer, or when you purchase a single copy, you can even get it on a little USB drive so that you can take it and plug it into any Windows computer, and the program would open up and you could dock your toolbar at the top for supports there. So then here's the plan. That's my facts and figures and boring graphs and all those sort of things. So hopefully no one fell asleep on that. Now comes the fun part where we'll take a look at the software itself. And the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to try to not get stuck on one particular feature for too long, because that would really end our time. That wouldn't make the most out of our time. So I've kind of broken this into, we'll take a look at a few reading supports, and then take a look at a few writing supports, followed by some research supports. And I'll pause. Research will, of course, kind of end things here. Excuse me, but I'll pause after each section there so that you guys can ask questions, and Sarah will be receiving your questions and then forwarding those on to me. So we're not ready for that slide yet. So I'm going to escape out of here and minimize PowerPoint, and I'm going to just open up, I'll just open up a simple Word document to start with. Or better yet, before we even go into the Word document, I should show you that when Read&Write Gold first opens, or you first open it, it may be floating around here in the middle of your screen. You can dock it to the left or to the right. Most people will choose to just push it all the way up to the top of the screen and dock it into place there. Now you can customize it all sorts of ways as well. You see the tools that I have at the top of the screen, and they're kind of small, but I've been using Read&Write Gold for years, and I know what they all are. You can adjust this. You can make larger icons, or you can make larger icons with text, so it actually says what the feature is underneath it. Currently, if you hover over something, here I'm going to hover over Fact Mapper, which is a graphic organizer tool. You'll see it tells you that that's the Fact Mapper. So how do you customize it? How do you make it look the way you want? Because you may not want to start using a product with 30 different tools on the toolbar. You may want to pare that down to only a couple of tools to start with. So what you would do is, over on the far right of the toolbar, you'll see a text help button, and to the right of that, excuse me, would be a little kind of drop-down arrow there that's going to give you access to a window. Now, if you're using, well, you're all using GoToWebinar at the moment, your side panel may be in the way there a bit, so you can move that panel down, or there's even a little arrow to where you can push it over to the side. I know sometimes I'm in webinars and I can't see what's going on in the corner of the screen there, but GoToWebinar does allow you to adjust that. So just to give you an idea, I've clicked on the drop-down menu, the little arrow next to the text help logo, and the first thing you see is Current Toolbar, and it says that I'm on the My Features toolbar. So if I wanted to switch it around, and if you wanted to see All Features, I can click All Features. It tells me I'm on the All Features toolbar, and you can see that it's so packed that it can't even fit all the features on here. There's a little double arrow to show the other features that I can't access from the primary toolbar there. So that's quite a bit. There's reading features and writing features and research features, My Features, study skills features. My Features is what I usually keep it on, and it starts with just kind of some of the most popular or most used features. But you can always change that around, because there's a thing here called General Options, and under General Options you can go in and modify what tools show up on any toolbar, whether it be My Features or reading or writing or any of that. So very customizable. There's probably a diverse group of people here on the webinar, so it's good to know if you're an individual user that you can customize this, or if you're in a K through 12 or higher ed or workplace setting and you're purchasing this software for others, it's good to know that you can go in and either customize it yourself or help others customize it or show them how to customize it or whatever it may be there. Another really important thing to make a note of, because you're probably not going to have access, you'll have access to this webinar, but you may not have access to training as soon as it is, that at the bottom of this you watch a toolbar video. That toolbar video is going to show you how to customize the toolbar and all that fun stuff. But the nice thing is that under each of the features, so if we want to look at the play button here, which is what we're going to be using quite a bit, you can see that there's a speech video tour. So under each of the different features, there's going to be a built-in video tour that will take you to the video that you can watch, and that'll be a nice kind of useful feature for you. So that's that. That's the toolbar. That's how you dock it. This is what it looks like when you open it. You can change the icons around and all that fun stuff. So let's take a look at what this is going to do from a reading perspective. So I just have an article up here that I took out of some Cobblestone magazine, and the basics are, let's say I want to have this thing read out loud. A couple of things I can do. I can just place my cursor at the beginning and push play. I can highlight text and push play. Either way that you're most comfortable with, you can do that. So I'm just going to hit the play button here at the top of the screen. Now, hopefully you will hear this, but you should at least see the highlighting as it is being read aloud.
The Confederate soldiers squinted through the haze as sweat dripped into their eyes.
Right, so pretty straightforward. I hit play, and it reads the sentence, and then it stops. Now, an important thing, we talked about text-to-speech earlier being a support that can be really beneficial. Text-to-speech has been shown to increase comprehension. It's even been shown to increase reading fluency for students that use it before they then go to read topics out loud. Text-to-speech is useful for text editing when writing, because you'll write something, use text-to-speech to listen to it, see how it sounds, and then come back and edit as appropriate. Loads of benefit for loads of different individuals when it comes to text-to-speech. Here's the thing, though, is not all text-to-speech is created equal. Now, there is quality of voices and things like that. The quality of the voice that you just heard, hopefully you could tell, but it is very high quality, especially compared to what we used to have 15 years ago when we were talking about text-to-speech. But the important part is what we call dual color or alternating highlighting. So you may have noticed when I pressed play that not only did it highlight the sentence that was being read to put my focus there, but then it started highlighting each individual word as it was read aloud. You will see this in every component of Read and Write Gold that uses text-to-speech, and it is very important. I used to use the example of my daughter, who now can read fluently on her own, but when she was smaller, when I read to her in the evenings, what would I do as I read to her? I would point to each word as I read it out loud, and that was critical for her to learn which word made which sound and those sort of things. So it's the same principle here, and that dual color highlighting is very important. Now, you can adjust everything with the highlighting. I remember when I was first an AT consultant, an assistive technology consultant, I thought I was a big shot, and I went into a school and I was doing a consultation, and I was like, oh, text-to-speech is definitely the answer here, and I told them what to do, and heard back a while later, and they said, hey, it's just not working. I said, what do you mean it's not working? And it turned out the student couldn't see yellow, and I had yellow highlights turned on. So the student wasn't getting the benefit of the highlighting as it was going because he wasn't able to see yellow. So I learned very early in my consulting career there that I really have to make sure I cover all the bases and not just assume something will work when I go in. So you can customize things like the colors and all that. So just a quick look here, because once you understand how to make the changes to these settings and see what's possible, that's going to carry on into other places. Right now I'm just on a Word document, but the same thing's going to carry over to when you're on web pages or in Google Documents or PDF files or anywhere like that. So next to each button or each icon is a little arrow, which you saw a moment ago when we were looking at choosing the toolbar, and under that there's some options. Currently it's set on read by sentence, and you just saw it, read by sentence. If I scroll down a bit, you'll see that there is something called automatically read next block of text. You'll notice I hit the play button earlier, it read a sentence and then it stopped. Well, if you choose automatically read next block of text, it will start reading and it won't stop until you hit the stop button or until it reaches the end of the page. So that's great for some learners and not so much for others, right? If you have students that, or if you yourself would have attention issues to where as it starts reading your mind starts to wander, it's nice to have to re-engage and hit the play button or the forward button each time. But otherwise it may be nice just to have it continue reading until you hit stop. So there's a setting there. Where you'll probably spend a little time at, though, is speech options. And in speech options, I apologize for my limited number of voices in here. There's a male and female voice and a Spanish, kind of a Latin American Spanish voice called Paulina here. But you can add many different voices in. When you purchase Read and Write Gold, there's an Essentials kind of website where you go to activate things, and you can get more languages from there, so you can get Spanish and French and Italian and German and whatever else you may need. The key there is, if you heard how Ava read the sentence that I played earlier, it was very clear and very fluent, easy to listen to. So Paulina will do the same for Spanish, as long as you have Spanish text, right? If you use Paulina with English text, it doesn't come out right, because she's using kind of a Spanish accent and language principles and things like that there. So you can also go and adjust the pitch and speed and volume and all that. There's a highlight tab here at the end. Here you see how it's the it says yellow background with blue block highlighting. You can change that to all sorts of different colors as well. So lots of different ways that you can customize text-to-speech. So I wanted to show you, you're probably tired of staring at this thing anyways, I wanted to show you a couple of other things. We're in a Word document now, but if I were to open up and go to the web, I'm in Chrome right now, Google Chrome, the web browser. But if you're in Google Chrome or Internet Explorer or Firefox or whatever it may be, you can still use the tools on the toolbar. So right before we started the webinar, I just went to CNN.com on the tech tab to see what's new. It's the only place you can find decent news. Everything else seems overly depressing. So you can see here that 6 things to love and hate about the iPhone 6. So I don't know if anyone here has got an iPhone 6 yet. If not, a little bit jealous. I wouldn't mind to have an iPhone 6. My 5 is all of a sudden looking very outdated. But this goes and talks about, you know, some of the things to do with the iPhone 6, and if I want to have any of that read, I just highlight it.
But it's not perfect. Like any smartphone, there are some things about the iPhone 6 that will drive you batty.
Right, so I'll just hit stop after that, but it'll read it just like it read the Word document. You have the dual color highlighting, the voice, the volume, the pitch, the highlight color, all that stuff is going to follow you around. So I did see one of the things on here is the big iPhone that people have. People are putting in their pockets, but they're not used to that, and it's actually bending the phone and causing some issues there, so unintended consequence going on there. So that's on the web. Also, I've got a Google document. So a lot of places. So I personally use at work and at home. I use Google Documents for everything, because sometimes I'm on a Chromebook, and sometimes I'm on a Mac, and sometimes I'm on a PC. Sometimes I'm on an Android tablet. Sometimes I'm on my iPhone, and sometimes I'm on an iPad. So I really I'm always on different devices. And the nice thing about Google is that it all stays in the cloud, and you can edit it on any device and all that. So if I am in a Google document here, in this case I have, you know, the PC version of Read and Write Gold. The same would work with the Mac version. I can just hit the play button.
Earth is the 3rd planet from the Sun and the densest planet in the solar system.
So same thing. There it's going to go through and read from a Google document as well. So we've covered Word documents, Google documents, web pages. So we're really covering most of the things that you or your learners would hopefully use. Another big one is PDF, and due to the nature of Adobe, we're actually looking into making some changes down the road here, but due to the nature of Adobe, we don't really integrate with Adobe, so we had to kind of make a plug-in inside of Adobe. So if you have a PDF file, all you have to do is browse to it. I think I've already got it open, but all you do is click the PDF button here and browse to your PDF file and open it up. And when it opens it up, here you'll see I've opened up this PDF file in Adobe Reader. And you'll see, after you've opened it up, there's an extended tab over here, and it says PDF Allowed Toolbar. So when you install Read and Write and access a PDF, you'll have access to the text-to-speech tools directly in Adobe due to this little plugin. And you'll see I have something called Click and Speak turned on. If you prefer, you can go and highlight some text and push the play button. I like Click to Speak. What it does is it turns my cursor into a kind of a pointy finger with a speaker next to it, and it allows me to go through and click.
In schools across the United States, physical education has been substantially reduced.
And you'll see it's the same principle, the dual color highlighting and all that, and that is directly in a PDF file. The last thing I want to cover with the text-to-speech piece is images, or images. So it does kind of come down to accessibility, and this is even with a PDF file. Not all PDF files are accessible, right? Some of them are just images. And if that's the case, there's a couple of options. If you just have an image, somebody snapped this in Canada with their phone and sent it, and we've been using it as an example. But up at the top of the screen on the toolbar, there's a tool called the Screenshot Reader. And when I click on the Screenshot Reader, it changes my icon around, and it allows me to just draw a box around the text. Oh, you know, sorry. This is going to be a poor example, I think. I'll explain why. Yeah. So what it does is you draw a box around any text, be it on an image or anywhere else, and it will read that out loud right over top of the image. Now, I'm not trying to hide anything here or anything like that. What happens is sometimes when you use a projector, for whatever reason, it gets real jumpy on you, and it makes it difficult to highlight. It's perfectly fine because I was testing everything before I hopped in the webinar. But since I'm on a webinar and it's projecting to go to webinar, it treats it like a second screen and makes it jumpy. But the main idea of the whole thing is you click on it, you draw a box around text. It takes 2 seconds to kind of analyze the text. It quickly OCRs it, if you're familiar with the term OCR. And so students can just read anything right on the fly, or anyone, not just students, obviously. I say students because this is used a lot in testing situations. When permitted, a lot of tests are locked down. So they're basically image files. You can't highlight the text and push play because people are afraid that you'd be able to copy it and paste it into a Word document or on Facebook and share it with everyone. So this allows you to just draw a box around any text and have it read aloud. Lastly, with PDF files, let's say you've got a fancy copy machine and you've scanned several pages through it and it turned it into a PDF file and emailed it to you. So now you have a whole chapter of a book as a PDF file, but those pages are probably just images. They're probably not accessible. The computer probably has no idea that the text on there is actually text. It just treats it as an image file. What you can do with Read&Write Gold, it actually has built-in OCR software. This alone is, if you just had a nice OCR software to make documents accessible, that alone would cost pretty much what Read&Write Gold costs. So you can see here I have a scanning icon at the top of, or on my toolbar, and when I click it I have a couple options. I can scan from Twain, which means I'm scanning from a scanner, or I can scan from a file. So if you've scanned a bunch of if you've made copies of a bunch of files, of documents, of books, or whatever with a copy machine, and it turned it in to a PDF for you, you can then just scan and look for that file, and it'll automatically take it and OCR that whole thing for you, and then you can still save that inaccessible PDF as an accessible PDF, and that would allow you to use the text-to-speech tools with it. So that's super duper useful for loads of people there. You can even scan from a digital camera as well on that. You can scan the PDF, which I recommend because it retains formatting, but you can also scan it to a Word document if you'd like as well. And of course, there is a scanning video tour. Hey, so that's reading. There's definitely other things involved with reading. You know, when you're reading along and you need to know, where's my Word document? And you need to know the definition of something. There's a dictionary. And so you click on the dictionary icon and it pops up a definition. And I can click on the definition and I can have the definition read aloud with dual color highlighting. You can also go say that you may be an English language learner, so English is not your primary language, you're not sure what a word is. You can use a translator, which we do have a translator that will translate single word or paragraph, or we even have a picture dictionary that uses the widget symbol library, if you're familiar with that. So you could search for images that go along with that, and that would give you maybe a better idea of what that word is. And then you can even double click on the image and it would insert it into a Word document for you if you were looking to modify an assignment or something like that. So lots of cool tools and useful tools for reading. I am going to jump in to show you a couple of things with writing. But while I'm doing that, Sarah, if there are any big questions that popped up related to reading I'm happy to answer one or two of those while I'm making a transition here.
Sure, I haven't seen any questions come through on the reading portion yet, but if there's anyone out there that wants to submit one, let us know through the questions interface.
Excellent. Okay, so that's good. So I'll hop on into writing here, but if something pops in, feel free to just yell at me and let me know.
Okay.
Okay, so jumping into writing, when I think about writing, writing is a process. So if I'm going to write something, usually I'm still kind of visually oriented. I'll usually get out a sheet of paper and kind of draw some thoughts and make a little diagram or something like that, and then turn that into a draft, and then turn that draft into something more formal, and then share it with others and get feedback and all that. So Read and Write Gold covers pretty much all of those steps. Now, unfortunately, I can't get into everything, but I do want to let you know that there is it's called Fact Mapper. There is a graphic organizer component, so you can plot your ideas and turn it into an outline. You can even export your outline into Microsoft Word if you would like. The only trick to Fact Mapper is that you do need to use it with Internet Explorer here if you're on the PC version, but if you have a PC, then you have Internet Explorer on your computer. So I use Chrome, except for this I'll flip over to Internet Explorer. So there is a graphic organizer component that will let you, brainstorm your ideas and do some pre-writing there. So then after you kind of get things organized and you know what it is you want to write about, you hop over to the writing portion and you start your first draft. And so when you're starting your first draft, I think one of the best things that you can use when you're writing is word prediction. And so I'm going to turn word prediction on. And if you're not familiar with word prediction, the basic idea is pretty simple. I type the letter T, and it predicts 12 words that start with the letter T. Now, I typed a capital T, therefore all these words have a capital T to start off with. Now, if I want to choose one of these, it will actually predict ahead a word for me. Now, don't worry, you can turn this off if you're in a classroom setting and worried that students will think that these are the only 12 words in the universe that can come after the word the. That's not the case. You can turn that off if necessary. But this is word prediction versus word completion, right? Word completion is when you're typing in a Word document or on your iPhone, and it suggests what you may be trying to type. It's trying to complete the word you're trying to type based off what you've typed so far and based off like what keys you may have hit wrong, right? Like, so if you were trying to hit the T key but you ended up hitting the G key because the G key is close to the T key, it's hard to say, then it'll recommend a word. But this is actual prediction based off of phrases and what's been, common phrases and common words and what word is most likely to come after another, and not so much what letter you're typing, but what words are used mostly in the English language. It's trying to predict from that. So it's word prediction as opposed to word completion, which you'll find everywhere. What's also interesting about word prediction is it gets better the more you use it. So notice here I type the word the and I hit space, and then it predicts 12 words. And if you guys were to do the same thing, the would probably have been the first word predicted if you typed T, but then the words that come after that would be totally different. For example, if I choose the word quick, the next word is brown. Now, why is the next word brown? Because I use this quite often. I use Read and Write Gold quite often, and many times somebody pops by for 5 minutes and they say, hey, what does this software do? So I show them text-to-speech and how it reads anything, and I'll usually show word prediction, and I type the sentence, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Why do I use that sentence? You probably know, but in case you don't, that's one of those common keyboarding keyboarding class sentences, right? It uses every word, it uses every letter in the alphabet whenever you type it. So I'm using word prediction. It knows it's me that's logged in, so I type the quick. It knows that brown is probably going to come next, and after that it's going to be fox. Brown, sure enough, there's fox. So in addition to that, you can see I can hover over words and it'll give me a definition, so I can get a definition of the word and have it read out loud. It even has an ear that pops up if there may be a homophone or a similar sounding word that goes along with it. Word prediction is actually not used nearly enough as it should be. I wrote a guide, a word prediction strategy guide, talking about all the different populations that could benefit from word prediction, and it really ranges everywhere from students just learning to write or just learning to type, or emerging writers many times will fall behind in their writing because they can't keyboard fast enough. Obviously, English language learners, if you speak English as a second language, you will probably find English confusing because you would think things like phone would start with an F because F makes the F sound. But that's actually incorrect. Phone starts with PH. So whenever a, maybe I'll just show you. So if I type F-O-N, and because of the context it showed up later than normally. Usually if you type F-O it would show up immediately. F-O-N, you'll see phone, so it will predict phonetically as well, which is very beneficial. Also, if there's a physical disability that impairs the use of being able to type proficiently using a keyboard, it can reduce the amount of keystrokes. There was a study, an independent study done that was put together, and it showed that it was actually a comparison study, and it compared Read&Write Gold's word prediction with two others, which was actually CoWriter and WordQ, which were the other two they're more standalone word prediction programs. Not only did Read&Write Gold reduce the amount of keystrokes the most, it reduced by half. In some cases, for some of the folks in the study, it reduced it almost 70%. But on average, it reduced keystrokes by half. It was 97% accurate in the words that popped up for it. So word prediction can really help a large number of learners there. Now here's the thing that we just don't have time for that I wish that we did. Word prediction has tons of options with it. And you can get to that by clicking the little drop-down menu. As for all options, you can click the drop-down menu. You can see there's prediction options. You can create word banks. We have some built in, or you can create your own. But let's say that you're typing about dinosaurs, right? So there's a lot of dinosaurs with kind of crazy names. And if you're just starting to type those names, word prediction probably isn't going to pick that up early on until you type it a few times. But if you have a dinosaur word bank, then it knows to pull from that word bank when you're typing, and it will recommend dinosaur words for you. So word banks are super handy. In addition, under prediction options, you can change everything from the color to the font size, how many words are displayed. You can choose whether or not you want it to predict a word ahead. You can choose whether when you click a word you want it to say the word aloud, or if you just want it to go ahead and insert the word for you. And you can see that's just on the first tab, and there are many more tabs there. You can actually take something you've typed in the past and scan it in with the word prediction here so that it learns kind of your writing style and vocabulary patterns. And so it'll better predict words for you after that. So cool stuff. Hey, so that's just a couple of things with writing. There's also an advanced spell check, phonetic spell check. It reads words out loud. It gives you the definition. Much better than the standard type of spell checks you'll get with Microsoft Word and Google Documents and those sort of things. There's also a homophone check, so it'll check through. For example, if you use the word there, it would pick that up and say, hey, did you really mean there, or did you mean there, or there, right? It gives you each word and the definition of each so that you can move forward. So that's just an idea of things you can use for writing. Of course, there's much more than that, but because of time, we're going to have to move on. We've only got a few minutes left here. I wanted to move in just briefly to the research features. So I'll pop that iPhone article back up just to take a look at. And I haven't really switched the toolbar in yet because I've had it, on my features, the frequently used ones. But I could go over to research features real quick. And you see it's still, the research features, a lot of these features work with each other, right? If I'm doing research, I may need text-to-speech to read some of the articles for me that I'm looking at. Well, some of the other features that go along with research are these highlighting tools. I love the highlighting tools. What the highlighting tools allow you to do, you can use this in Word or Google Docs or on web pages, wherever you like. You go through and you make a highlight and you choose a highlighting color. And it actually highlights it right there on the web page for you. Scroll down and find something else here. I'll highlight this one in blue and it grabs that for me as well. So when I'm done highlighting all the really important stuff, I'm just going to go and say collect highlights. And it's going to say, hey, what highlights do you want? Which colors? In this case, I want all of them. It's only going to collect yellow and blue because that's all that I use there. And it asks which way you want to highlight it, by color or by position in the document and so on. It'll even include a bibliography. Now, it'll put it in the right format for as far as MLA or APA, but it's only going to include the information it has. You're still going to have to add some information there on it. So when I hit OK, you'll see it quickly goes over and it takes those highlights out, puts it in a Word document for me, keeps the highlights in there, shows me the title of it, the date that I got it, the link, all that good stuff, so I can immediately go back and grab that later. So if that's not a feature that everyone can use, I don't know what is. So those are the highlight, collect highlights tools. Now if you want to clear your highlights, you just go back and hit clear highlights. And so that's kind of the basic if you're doing some quick research. But there's also a fact folder here as well. And the fact folder, I just recommend when you get the trial. You got to get the trial to check some of this stuff out. Because when you get the trial, you can watch the video. And the video will show you what the fact folder is. But let's say you're working on some research. Like I use this whenever I'm preparing for presentations. If I know I'm doing a big session a couple of months from now, I'll start doing some research now. And what I do is I go and I look on the web and I find some interesting web pages. I highlight that information and I put it in my fact folder and create a category for it. So if I'm doing a training on word prediction, I'll create a word prediction folder. Every article I find that has something interesting about word prediction, I highlight the interesting part and I put it in my fact folder. And when I'm done, I can then export all that out into a Word document. It has all my facts. It has where I got it from. It gives me a little bibliography at the end. And it's a super useful tool for me if I'm building a presentation. But it's also a great support for those that are having to do some type of research paper or even if it's research stuff for something for the office or something like that as well. It's a great support. So we saw the highlighting supports, and then we saw well, we didn't see it, but I told you about the fact folder. The last one on there is a vocabulary tool. So it doesn't matter if I go on the web or I'll hop back over on this battle style blunders document. If I were to go by and just highlight individual words, what do we got? Cannons. It doesn't really matter. I'm just grabbing some words here. You'll get the point. So the purpose here is I'm trying to build a vocabulary list, which again, depending on your role, may or may not be that useful. Definitely useful in the K through 12 setting. So I'll go through and I'll highlight a few words, and I'll click this vocabulary builder, and it grabs those words for me. I can actually add more words if I would like. I may want to add the word uniform, for example. Add. And I'm going to give this a list that I'm making a name. So we'll just call it Battle Blunders. I'm going to hit OK. And then it creates me this fancy little vocabulary sheet. And like I said, if you're in this is going to be handy in any type of education setting. But geez, if you're in the K through 12 setting, I remember, I was late in high school in the high school history class. Look at the words, the bold words in the book, write them down, go get a definition from the back of the book, draw some type of picture, and then write a sentence using the word. So I could just change this notes area to use in a sentence, and then you could go and write a sentence using the word, and you could even turn word prediction on while you're writing. And if you really want to get creative, there's a lot of stuff you could do here. This is just a table now in a Word document, so you could save this and send it to anyone. Once you've saved it, you don't need Read&Write Gold to open it because it's just in Word. So I've seen people create visual schedules for students that needed, maybe students with autism that needed kind of a visual calendar type thing. But I've also seen it to where the meaning here was translated using the translator tool. And so another column was put in. So there was the word, then there was the word in Spanish in another column. Then there's the meaning, and the meaning in Spanish in yet another column, and then the symbol, and then a place to use in a sentence. So you can really customize this a lot of ways. So that's the vocabulary list builder. So again, I've really only scratched the surface here with what we can do. I mean, there are over 30 features, and all the features have all the different settings that you can do. But hopefully I've given you a little bit of an idea about how Read&Write Gold can support with reading it can support with writing, and it can support with research. And depending where you're at or what your role is, whether you're in K through 12, higher ed, a business setting, nonprofit, consultant, any of those sort of things, Read and Write Gold is a tool that contains all of those supports that we talked about in the beginning. So when we look at why hasn't reading performance increased in the United States for the last 20 years, well, there's a lot of reasons, and we know that strategies can help, but the problem is that strategies take time. And while we take time doing strategies, which we should be doing, students miss out on the content. And what these type of tools do, they give learners and individuals, they give everyone access to the content while still learning strategies at the same time. It's not an either or. They should always be used together. But hopefully that makes sense, and this has been somewhat beneficial. It's 3:51 Central now, which is the time I'm supposed to wrap up. So I'm just going to pop this slide up for a moment before going to the final one to give you guys my information in case you need anything. So Jason, as you guys already know, there's my email. There's a number you can get me at if you need to call. And if there are any tweeters out there, you can find me on Twitter as well. So you can always shoot me a message there, and I'll be happy to respond. So I hope this was full. Sarah, I'm going to turn this over to you now. Are there any questions?
Yeah, we do have some questions that came in. So the first question is from Vicki, and she asks, do you have to do anything in particular to upload or link ebooks to Read and Write Gold? And does it caption videos?
It does not caption videos, and it may be hard to get back to do a follow-up there, because the ebooks, like if you're talking an EPUB file, the thing is Read and Write is just a toolbar that works with whatever else you open. So it's not like Read and Write Gold opens an EPUB file. It would be if you have something else that opens an EPUB file on your screen, then you could, depending on how accessible it is, use Read and Write Gold with that file. So even if it's not accessible, you could always use the screenshot reader tool and draw a box around the text, and it would quickly scan that and read that aloud for you. So if you got real specific questions on that, feel free definitely to send me an email there.
Great. And the next question is from Amanda. She says, we have been using Premier tools to convert textbooks into MP3 format for disability students. Does Read and Write Gold have that capability?
It does. There's actually, if you can still see my screen, there's a little music note up here. It's called SpeechMaker. And basically, yes, you just highlight all the text you want, and it will turn it in. It'll turn it into an MP3 file for you, and then you can listen to it on your on your iPhone or iPad or whatever it is you want to listen to it on there.
Very cool. The next question is from Megan. She says, I am an AT consultant supporting students in a district who just purchased Droid-based tablets. They're called LearnPads. With Read and Write for Google. Is this the same software, and are there any differences?
Right. Okay. So that's interesting. That's good. Okay. Are there differences? There are differences, but what the stuff I've shown are basically going to be the same. It's the same text-to-speech voice and all that. I guess the best way to think of it is TextHelp's been around for 20 years now. This is version 11 of Read and Write Gold, and Read and Write for Google is progressing very quickly, but it's still a baby, So it's kind of a version 1. So you're going to see text-to-speech. You're going to see, luckily, the things I showed today. You're pretty much going to see all that with Read and Write for Google. And for those wanting to know about Read and Write for Google, basically integrates with Google Chrome. So if you're using Chromebooks or just web browsers and things like that. But it'll have text-to-speech, word prediction. It has speech input, the highlighting tools, vocabulary list builder, all those sorts of things. So the majority of what you saw here, minus things like spell check, will work very similar, yes.
So that, those are all the questions that came in through the interface. And I just found some of those features absolutely amazing. So I wish I would have had a software like this during college when you're working on research papers, and just the ability to capture the bibliography information that quickly and easily. You know, the word prediction, being able to scan in something that you've already written to help it better, you know, understand your style. I don't know. It was just, it was very interesting and amazing features and customization. So I thought it was a great presentation, Jason. Thank you.
Excellent. That's good to hear. Yeah, I know some of the things you don't think about just because I always have access to it. I use some of these things that it's just amazing some of the things you can do with it and how useful it really is. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate the invite as well. So again, any questions, be sure to forward them my way.
We will. So if there are, let's see, we just got one more question coming in. Amanda asked, when creating an MP3, can the document be Word or PDF?
Good question. So if you can highlight it and copy, if you can do a copy paste with it, you could do either. You just have to be able to grab the text. And I say that because in a Word document, definitely. If you have a Word document, you highlight it. If you have a web page, you can highlight it, no problem. But if the PDF, if the PDF isn't really accessible and you can't grab the text, then it's not going to work as well there. So I guess the answer on PDFs is it depends on the PDF, but as long as you can highlight and select the text, it will work, whether it be, like I said, a web page or any of that.
Great. Did anyone else have any questions that they'd like to submit to Jason before we wrap up? We'll give everyone a minute. If you would complete a short survey after the webinar, we'd love to hear your feedback. If you have any questions for Jason, definitely get in touch with him, or you can reply to the follow-up email, and we will forward it along to Jason on your behalf. You will receive that follow-up email from us in about 3 to 5 business days. It takes us a couple days to compile all of the information for you, format the recording and everything, but you will get that email that includes the link to the recorded webinar, your certificate of attendance, the link to the free trial, and also a link to the EnableMart website if you'd like to purchase the software. So with that, I would just like to thank everyone for attending today, and we will wrap up the webinar. Thank you so much again, Jason.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks again.
Okay. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Goodbye.